hear from Ken from Desitter Flooring and Brendan from the Floor Force Broadloom team. How you guys doing?
Good.
Well, how about yourself?
Doing well. I'd love to start here. Ken, I'd love to spend a minute, hearing about your background, hearing about Desitter. I'd love to start there.
Okay. I've been with Desitter actually going on almost 20 years. Been over 30 years in marketing and business development. I handled, actually worked for some major companies, handling accounts. Kmart which is not around, but handled all their marketing, print marketing, so just it's without getting into a lot of detail. I was working for a company, came across Desitter was a client of ours, and I was a manager for the company, and scheduled a meeting with them. There was an issue, and got to know one of the owners, and he was handling their advertising. And I said, I could really help you, and just with my background, and I really liked these guys, Tom Cunningham and his cousin and partner, Steve Desitter, and was a consultant for them, and an outside consultant, and was trying to help build their business. I recognized they were a great company, been around. Actually, we're celebrating our 100th anniversary, and was just like these guys. I mean, they wanted to grow. They cared about their people and their customers. So they made my job easy, and they made an offer for me to come on board full time. Didn't know anything about flooring, but my wife is an interior designer, had a kind of if you want to say, a passion or understanding of home design and goods, and the rest is history. And like I said, just been, we kind of say, I mean, this company started in 1920 by Tom and Steve's grandfather, and then their fathers had it. And we've been through everything, pandemics, the Great Depression, we've been through it all. And we're going to continue to survive. And this year, like I said, we're celebrating our 100th anniversary, and excited and we'll, like I say, get through this.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Ken. And Brendan, it'd be great to hear a minute of your background. Obviously, we work at the same company, but I think it's helpful for everyone to get some context of kind of your background as well.
Sure. So yeah, I've been at Floor Force for the past 3 years. In my current role, I'm working as our paid media team lead. So I oversee a team of some of the best and brightest digital marketers across our Google Ads and Facebook Ads initiatives. Before I joined Floor Force, I started out at Google on the AdWords team. While I was at Google, I specifically worked with SMBs across the US, mainly accounts that had high growth potential, and really worked with a lot of these small businesses to help scale their businesses.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we didn't have our paths crossed at Google, but we did both work in the Ann Arbor office. So both alumni of Michigan. So I'd love to kind of take this conversation down that AdWords and marketing approach. Ken, I know you've been really dialed into spending money on Google Ads. Like, where does Google Ads fit in your portfolio of marketing? Like, if you were to look at your total marketing budget, how much is digital? Is that growing over time compared to everything else? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I would say prepared, last year and even this year, even more so with digital. I would say at least 60%.
Okay.
Let me put 60% of total in digital marketing. Okay. As far as Google AdWords percentage of that, that's going to be a majority of that 60%.
Okay. And so 60% of all your marketing is digital. How does that compare to where it was 2 years ago or 5 years ago?
I would say it was more like 2 years ago was probably more like 40%.
Okay. And so you've gone from 40% to 60%. What do you, when you work with Brendan and you talk to our team, like, what are you looking for as success metrics? Like, obviously we can see leads and we can see phone calls, but what has made you want to grow from 40 to 60%? Because I think a lot of people that I talk to are still hesitant even to take the first 10%. So I guess the two questions I have for you are like, what made you go from 40% to 60%? And what even made you go from 0 to 5%? Because a lot of people are still hesitant to even try it.
If you're not using digital, I mean, you know, putting investments into your website, your paid, Google campaigns I mean, to the point of actually what we're going through right now, right? I mean, we have people using digital more than ever, and will continue even after this is all over. And so the reality is people are making their decisions. I mean, we have showrooms, beautiful showrooms. We made big investments in our showrooms. And there are people, but when they're coming through the door, they're pretty much have a good idea what they want. They've kind of made maybe not their final decision, but they've done their research, and then they're coming to you is pretty much to see the products and maybe get obviously a little more expertise from, you know, if you have good consultants, sales consultants like we do, to help them make those final decisions. But as far as what convinced me is just the reality of just other mediums and reality of people just spending more time online.
Yeah, and I looked at some stats. It looks like about 70% of consumers will visit the website before making a purchase and will come through, you know, digital to do that. So, you know, it's good to influence them beforehand so that they come to the showroom educated,
Correct.
wanting to buy from Desitter. And Brendan, I know you manage, you know, millions and millions of dollars, and you manage the team that, you know, manages all of the ad spend. Like, what are you seeing certain trends? And when you talk to customers, what is, you know, the pushback, or, you know, what is the pushback when people start getting up and running? And then once they kind of get up and running, how does that process look? Like, are they then starting to see that you can track it and, you know, really dial up and down the budget? Or kind of what are you seeing from your lens when working with all the retailers?
Sure. So yeah, just starting out to your first question about trends that I've seen over the last couple of years, I think the biggest thing that jumps out has been the explosion of geo-modified searches across the board, especially in this industry. In general, you see people that are looking for flooring, and when they're looking for flooring, they're searching to find a retailer either near them or specifically in a town or city nearby. So really in the last couple of years, the main thing that we've really seen is that a lot of these searches that are coming through, especially for people who are in that initial research phase, are people who are typing in flooring near me, flooring retailer near me, or flooring whatever that town or city is that they live in. And that's really how they're going about trying to find the first few retailers. If you think about it just in terms of trends over time, you know, people back in the day might have opened up a phone book or yellow pages to try and find a directory list of those retailers, but that's just not the case anymore. So people are taking those types of searches that they would have previously done in those old mediums, and they're now just doing that on these search engines.
Yeah. Just to clarify, just a question on that. So you're saying geo-modified. So I guess what you mean by that is people are typing in flooring store, you know, Denver, or they're typing in flooring store LaGrange. I know that's near, you know, Ken's stores. So you're seeing that. Does that mean, you know, are we then using broad match modified keywords and kind of doing geo type campaigns? Or, you know, I don't want to get too deep into AdWords, but what does that then make you do in the AdWords account because of those trends?
Yeah, so as a result of those trends, it really, for us, means that we need to develop a good understanding of our retailers' markets and the towns and areas that they tend to service, so that we're actually bidding on those searches. So that when someone does go into Google and they type for flooring LaGrange in Ken's case, or flooring Glen Ellen, Wheaton, any of the other towns nearby Ken, that we're there and we're front and center, so that when someone's doing that research, we show up and we capture that traffic so they can get to the website.
Yeah, it's important to be granular there, right? Because if you're just bidding on flooring store near me or flooring store, you're then bidding, let's call it $2 or whatever it is, $5 on all the searches. But if you can get super granular and say, no, specifically if they type in flooring store LaGrange or flooring store Denver or flooring store New York, you want to bid specifically on that. So yeah, I totally.
Hey, Todd, if I can just add something real quick on that,
Yeah.
Because working with Brendan and even with yourself, years ago, the flooring industry, people, depending on where your markets are, but like us being in Chicago, it's a very competitive market. I mean, you're not only fighting with other, flooring stores, but you're fighting with guys out of a truck, with hardwood or something like that. And so people are going to travel only so far. For us, like we cover we'll install all throughout Chicago and even Wisconsin, but it's the shopping process, getting them to stores, and that's why it's important to protect your key markets. And the other thing I want to throw out is branded. There's branded and unbranded, and it's important to put still an investment. I mean, with us being around so long, and our name is very key in our areas, people are going to bid against or bid to get those keywords. They're bidding on Desitter. So when people are typing in our name, there's ads coming up. So you got to protect that because your competitors are going to play off your good name.
Yeah.
So you got to still, make sure you put the investment on your own brand to protect it.
Yeah. I mean, there's really two things, interesting about bidding on your own brand. One, it's kind of defending your own territory. And I'm sure Brendan can speak better to this, but if it's your website and you're bidding on your own brand, your quality score is going to be the highest. So for you to get position one, it might cost you $1. For someone else to try to bid on your name and get position one, it might cost them $5, right? So you can kind of protect your territory for the cheapest. But, something I've also seen about bidding on your brand is it allows you to kind of track your brand awareness in the market. So if your brand clicks go up month over month over month, that's a really good signal for you, even if it's just a survey, right? You're protecting your territory, but then it's kind of like an internet survey to say, how often are people searching for me? And then it's a really good indicator of all your other marketing, right? So if you run a TV commercial, you'll probably see your branded searches go up that month, right? If you're running Facebook ads, you'll probably see your branded searches go up that month. So it is a good pulse on, where the brand is in the market.
Right.
And just to add into that as well, I think one of the other key advantages to bidding on your own brand is that you get to control the messaging. So then when someone does type in your brand, the very first thing that they're going to see is your ad, and you get to decide what that message is. That's going to be the entry point for the consumer. And if you have a specific offer, a sale that you want to promote, you can have that right there front and center at the top of the search results.
Yep. Yeah. And I know, we have a really good relationship with Google, Facebook, Instagram. Obviously, a lot of our company has worked there. And we get access to a lot of the early betas, alphas, other things. There's a lot of tools, in my opinion, that Google and Facebook offers that even, a lot of our retailers don't even know about, right? I was talking to a retailer yesterday about RLSA, right? Remarketing lists. So Brendan, what is some of the new tools? Is it remarketing list for search? What are some of kind of the new things coming out or that you've seen work really successfully with, the flooring community?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I've seen really over the last year or so here in 2020 is just audience targeting. That's been an area that in general, all the marketing platforms are really trying to win at. That's been an area that Facebook had a lot of early success in, and that Google's trying to also continue to expand their opportunities in. So one of the things we can do in Google now that we couldn't do in the past is use what they're calling detailed demographic audiences, where not only are we going to be able to know information about someone's age and gender, but we actually have information about their level of educational attainment. We have more information just generally about their backgrounds in terms of what they've been searching for. Google, at the end of the day, because they have all the search data, can compile exactly what people are searching for and what they're in the market for. And they created these in-market audiences that basically say, hey, we know these people have been actively looking for flooring. They've been typing it in searches, and we can apply those audiences to our campaigns and essentially try and target those users. It really allows us a lot more granular control and will allow us going forward to really refine the exact audience we're hitting.
Yeah. And I think the big question people are going to ask is, how does Google do that? And to be clear, right, you sign into Google Chrome, you do all of these searches. By doing all these searches, they categorize you. So for instance, they say, we know that this consumer is looking to buy a house, right? Based on all their searches on Google Chrome, this person's looking to buy a house. And what Brendan can do is say, let's target people that are typing in flooring store near me and have also are looking to buy a house through Google's demographics. Well, that person might be a really strong audience segment that we can then bid higher on, because that person might have, more likely to actually convert and give a phone call. But I agree. I mean, Google is getting much better at that. I think Facebook was really the purveyors of audience targeting, but Google has gotten much, much better at that over the last couple of months.
Absolutely. Facebook certainly had the early advantage, as you explained kind of the background on how Google operates on Facebook's end. It's really all just data and information that we've provided to Facebook, right? So Facebook is prompting you to put in where you went to school and where you work and things along those lines. And that's what allows us to target people by job titles on Facebook and allows us to do all of those things. So there's a lot of powerful tools that we can use there.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? I'm just as much of an advocate as Facebook as I am Google, but Facebook people, Facebook looks at the things you like. If you were to look at the things you like on Facebook, it probably doesn't result necessarily in who you are. So what's interesting is we pulled a report of, all the conversions for all these accounts, and it said, what do these people like? And one of the big ones was like, they like going on cruises. Now, that's radically different than something you would expect. And I'm not necessarily sure everyone that wants to fill out forms or give phone calls to flooring retailers likes to go on cruises. But again, there's just a different demographic of things you do on Facebook versus things you do on Google. At the end of the day, the data is the data, right? So it is interesting that you can see things like that and the differences between the two platforms. So before we kind of end here today, I'd love to ask both of you, Ken, starting with you. We're going through some challenging times now. It sounds like we'll get out of these challenging times in the next few weeks. What advice do you have for, flooring retailers, flooring manufacturers today? And just, how does this change the industry looking 3, 6, 12, 24, 36 months down the road?
Well, we said, and it's going to be a new, or, we'll get back to normal, but I do agree it'll be a new normal. It'll be, mindsets will be a little different, habits, at least in the very beginning, it's going to be, but I think if you're not putting more investment, this is a time when business is slow to really look at your business, your company, and what can you be doing better. For example, like us, you have less lead, but making sure you're making the most of every lead. I mean, sometimes when business is good, you got to count, what's some of the fallout, the stuff that's fallen through the cracks, or the jobs, because you look at it and go, that's not going to go anywhere because it's a small job. But but that small job could be a big job, or it could be every lead counts. And so lead management is very important. So whether you're doing Google AdWords, or you're doing whatever medium you are to generate a lead, you got to put just as much the investment importance on making sure that lead is being captured and being, handled properly, your sales team, and measured. As far as, advertising and where you're putting your marketing dollars, if you're not putting, at least if you haven't really put much, if you're not at least starting off with at least 30%, start, you got to do it. And I would say increasing, because there are going to be more people still shopping online more than ever.
Yeah.
And your website, the investment on your website, make sure that your website, like FloorForce, is our website that we work with. But you got to manage it too, just to say, Brendan and Todd, working with your team is great, but you got to manage it. Myself, Brendan and I, we spent a lot of time, and that's what I got to say is nice, because I've worked companies prior to you guys, and they don't put the same care, or trying to understand your business, your business and your market. So I'm just you got to. It's not just putting money into it. You got to be invested, in time, and work with your whoever's managing your account, and and that input, so it helps them to be smarter and manage your money better.
Yeah, totally. And I think you bring up a really good point of, you can get as many leads as possible. And during, busy times, you might go to the hottest lead or the best lead and leave all the rest away. Well, this is a really good time to change that mentality, and every lead is important. And if you can keep that mentality you have now, even during busy times, you'll be better during busier times.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
I totally hear you. Brendan, how about you? What is one word of advice you have for the flooring community over the next 6, 12, 18 months?
Absolutely. So I think Ken hit the nail on the head here. I think starting out here, if digital marketing isn't something that you've really started to dabble in and explore, I think this is absolutely the time to get into it. We're continuing to see more and more search volume year over year. There's still a lot of search volume even right now, despite the circumstances here with COVID-19. There's a lot of pent up demand here. I think we're going to see a lot of opportunity when we do return to whatever this new normal looks like. And for anyone who hasn't jumped into paid advertising, the main thing that I would provide as advice is that you're not likely to see immediate results overnight. It's very possible that you do see some great results, but it does take some time and some patience. I think a lot of times people think that this is basically just a faucet that we turn on and we all of a sudden just have leads pouring out. And that's not always the case. Usually it's going to take us about 3 months worth of time for your average retailer to accumulate enough data points for us to figure out what is and isn't working. And to speed up that process and to get to that point, as Ken mentioned, the best thing we can do is really have a partnership together with our retailers. And that's, we know Google ads, we know Facebook ads, but you know your market and you know your business. And together with that knowledge, that's going to give us our best chance at really driving leads effectively and making that happen as soon as possible.
Yep, totally agree. And I want to give a shout out. We've mentioned a lot of Facebook and Google. We haven't mentioned Bing. I think Bing is also a very good platform, so don't want to forget that. But anyways, Brendan, Ken, really appreciate your time. One, funny story I want to end with is Ken. I think we've known each other at least over the phone for maybe 2 or 3 years, and
well, and you actually worked on my account.
I did back in the day, and in my phone, you have always been labeled Ken Desitter. So for the first year of knowing you, I thought your last name was Desitter. I've soon realized it's not, but even to this day, I sometimes my phone type in Ken Desitter, then realize I have to go back. That's not you, but
well, I work very closely with the owner, but obviously I don't know, but like I said, it speaks volumes of the company. I'm very fortunate to be a part of a company that cares, again, for not only their customers, but their employees, and they want to grow and be the best. And we're always striving for that. And you guys have been great. Brendan, I've always, challenging you with, but again, that's back to, you got to get involved. How can you, obviously when you don't get the feedback, you see data, but sometimes you still need to get that feedback. So I appreciate all your hard efforts too.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys taking the time. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.